Greetings and peace be to you. I'm Pastor Ted Chafee of FBC Belfast. As the risen Christ told doubting Thomas to believe, today we'll explore what a difference believing can make in your life. Come, let's worship together.
John 1:10-13. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. John 14:11-12. Believe me when I say that I am in the Father and the Father is in me, or at least believe on the evidence of the works themselves. Very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these, because I am going to the Father.
We lift to God now the joys and celebrations this past week has brought us. In the same way, we raise our concerns and cares. May the Spirit of love and grace hear our prayers on this day.
Only 24 through 29. Now Thomas, also known as Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." A week later his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here, see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed."
The star of our show today is Thomas. Thomas the disciple, Thomas the twin, Thomas the doubter. See, Thomas just couldn't seem to believe in anything. He didn't seem able to believe or to trust anyone. Filled with doubt, and doubt's true companion, fear. In John 14, for example, Jesus has just told the disciples how wonderful their next life will be, and that he's going to prepare a place for them, and they need not be troubled, and their hearts can relax and be at peace. And in the midst of this beautiful, beautiful picture that Jesus is painting, Thomas, the doubter, jumps in and says, "We don't know what you're talking about. We don't get all of this." Just couldn't quite fathom the belief. And so here we have him in the story that Haley just read to us. And Thomas is the last to return after the crucifixion. You remember that when Jesus was arrested in the garden, the disciples scattered like chickens before a fox. And off they ran as fast as they could go. And they ran as far as they could go to get away from what they considered danger. And gradually, after about 3 days, they made their way back, and they were settled at the house where they were staying in Jerusalem. Thomas, however, must have run farther and been scarier than the others, because he wasn't there that third day. He wasn't there the first Sunday when Jesus appeared to the disciples and said, "Peace to you," and the other things that we've been talking about. Thomas wasn't there. And when he finally did return, he just couldn't believe what they were telling him. He couldn't believe Mary, who said, "I have seen the Lord." He couldn't believe the rest of the disciples, who were all telling him, "We have seen the Lord." And so we find him on this evening, a week later, huddled with the other disciples, the door still locked, a mess of doubt and fear. And Jesus appears again, the risen Christ appears to them and speaks to Thomas the one word that he most needs to hear. "Thomas," he says, "believe." It's interesting to consider for just a moment the first words that Jesus says to people throughout the gospel accounts. For one man whose hand had evidently been crushed in an accident or was in some way maimed, stepped before the group, and Jesus said, "Your sins are forgiven." Nicodemus comes to him at night and he says, Nicodemus, you need to be born from above. One man walking along the side of the road, Jesus says to him, what do you want me to do for you? And we remember that beautiful story of the woman at the well, when Jesus says, first of all, would you give me a drink? Belief, he says to Thomas. Thomas, believe, because belief is the foundation of our actions. We act according to what we believe. And poor Thomas couldn't act because he couldn't believe anything. He is at heart so insecure, at a loss. It seems that it was a way of life for him. He needed to become somebody. In order to become something, he needed to believe something. And so Thomas, like us all, needed to experience the transformation of belief. When Jesus invited Thomas to believe, he was not simply saying, hold on to something, Thomas. He was not saying, pick a thought and stick with it. He wasn't saying, out of all the massive things on this earth that you can believe in, find one to believe in and go with it and stay with it. That's not what Jesus was saying. Jesus was saying, Thomas, believe me. Why? Emily read us those passages right at the beginning of the book of John. And in John chapter verse 12 of chapter 1, it's related that there were a lot of people around who did not believe Jesus. And Jesus came into the world, and there were those who saw him but didn't pay any attention. And there were those who should have known better but still rejected him. But if they believed, if a person believed, they became a child of God. That's what Thomas needed. For Thomas to become a child of God meant he would no longer be a fearful skeptic. For Nicodemus to believe, it meant he would no longer be a petulant rules abider. For the woman at the well, for her to believe meant she was no longer closed in, but suddenly open to the wider world. For the paralytic, he was no longer defined by his sin. Believing Jesus changes us from the limited, self-defeating, sin-ruled, dependent, myopic people we have become to the unlimited, life-affirming, loving, creation-embracing children of God. You are transformed from what this world has shaped you into to the person God created you to be. Believe, my friend. Believe that Jesus brought the love and majesty of God into this human world, and in so doing has opened the door for transformation. Believe and be transformed. But wonderfully, believing does not stop at transformation. Thomas, our hero, needed to also experience the empowerment of belief. Thomas is always spoken of in the Gospels as the twin. He was somebody's twin. And I tend to think that Thomas was probably the younger of the twins. You know how it is with twins. It's very important to them and very important to their families which was born first. Right? When you meet twins, you get that information among the very first things that you gain, the things they say. They make sure you know who was born first. And it isn't always true with twins. I know you can't say every case is the same, but oftentimes it seems that that firstborn twin is quite different than the secondborn, even if the birth time is only 10 minutes apart. And if they look exactly the same in every other respect, yet they are very different. And it's often the older one who is the more aggressive, the stronger, and the younger one who sort of lives in the shadow. Thomas, I think, was like that. Probably the younger twin who lived in the shadow of his older sibling. His brother spoke while Thomas listened. If somebody asked a question of Thomas, his brother would be just as likely to answer the question as Thomas would, perhaps more so. His brother acted when Thomas stepped aside. His brother confidently took on challenges, never doubted himself or his place in the world, whereas Thomas was exactly the opposite. Thomas needed belief because he needed to be empowered. It is truly amazing what happens next in this story. Jesus says, believe, and Thomas says from the very depths of his heart, with strength and with conviction, his belief, my Lord and my God. And this statement is the statement that the entire Gospel of John is pointing towards. It is seen as the climactic point of that work of literature. But, as it happens, this is the very last time that Thomas appears in the Bible. Now, there's a lot that happens. We read in the rest of the Bible about all the stuff that was happening around Jerusalem and about miracles that occurred and about what Peter and James and John did and the church growing and spreading, and then the Apostle Paul being converted and him traveling all over the Roman Empire, founding churches and spreading the gospel of the good news and encouraging belief in every nook and cranny of the Roman Empire. And Thomas is outside of all of this narrative. A lot was happening, but Thomas wasn't a part of it. But lest we think he sank back into his old ways, we find the opposite is true. Thomas, you see, said, I have bigger fish to fry. While others are laboring to spread the good news in the Roman Empire, Thomas decided to do the impossible. Thomas decided to take on the unthinkable. He packed his bag and set out beyond the borders of the Roman Empire. Thomas set out for a land that was mysterious and exotic, a land few visited. He went to the subcontinent of India. And there Thomas lived out the rest of his life, forming and developing community after community of believers. He is a revered saint in parts of India to this very day. Thomas believed, and he left in his wake believers, a multitude of believers. That is the second part of believing, for Thomas and for you. Believe and be transformed to the person God made you to be. Believe and be empowered to do what now seems impossible. What challenge stands before you today? What impossibility do you need to take on? Believe. All things are possible. Only believe.